Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to section 7.3. We're talking about graphs of real-world situations. We've got a lot of vocab here today. Not a lot much as far as mathematical things go in this section. We just have a lot of things that we're going to talk about that we need to make sure we understand. The two big things are dependent and independent variables. We'll give some examples of those here in a second. And then we have some other words there that will help us when we're describing real-world graphs. So, independent and dependent variables. So what we're looking at is the dependent variable depends on something else happening in order for it to work. Okay, the classic independent variable. Okay, so the most classic independent variable is time, because um, time always happens. Okay, time never stops. So when in doubt, you can always look at whether or not um, time is an issue. So we're looking at what is the independent variable and what's the dependent variable. Okay, so independent versus the dependent here. So in example 1, okay, we have numbers of hours you study for a test versus the grade on your test. Okay, so we think about this. Your grade depends on how long you study. Okay, now we're assuming that not everyone's a genius, so your grade here is going to be the dependent variable because it is going to depend on the number of hours studied. Okay, so the number of hours studied is not dependent on your grade. Okay, it's the other way around. Your grade is dependent on how long you studied. Okay, this example 2, how far you can drive versus the number of gallons in your gas tank. Okay, so let's think about this. If any of you know anything about cars, you know you need to have gas in your car to go. So for this example here, how far can you drive depends on how much you have in your tank. If you don't got much in your tank, you ain't going very far. Okay, so the dependent variable here is the distance driven. And the independent variable is the gallons of gas. Okay, so like we said here, when you're trying to figure out if it's independent or dependent variables, try to figure out, can something happen without the other one happening? If it can't, then that one's definitely the dependent variable. So last thing, you know how much everyone likes food, so we're talking about pizza toppings and price. Okay, if you order just a cheese pizza, that's going to cost less than if you order a pizza that has 6 different toppings. Okay, so the number of pizza toppings, or the total cost of the pizza, depends on the number of pizza toppings that you order. So we have our dependent variable is the pizza cost, and that's compared to the number of toppings. All right, so a lot of what we're doing here in this section is going to be determining whether or not we know what the independent and dependent variables are. So that's where we're going from there. Okay. The last thing here is describing and being able to look at and understand what graphs actually mean. All right, so we're talking about describing graphs. These are some of the vocab words that you had in your beginning lesson here. So the graph is going to start near 0. Okay, so we have 0 down here. The graph is going to start somewhere near 0 down here, and it's going to increase. It's going to increase rapidly and then plateau. Okay, so plateau means flatten out. So it's going to increase rapidly and then plateau near 10. Okay, so if we have 10 up here, it's going to increase rapidly. So that line's going to be very steep. And then it's going to plateau and flat out near 10. Okay, so this would be, if we see this graph, this is how you would describe that graph. There's going to be some times where they ask you to describe graphs and what they mean and so forth. But that's what's going to happen. All right, so then we look here. The graph starts at 0. Blue this time. The graph starts at 0, increases rapidly till 5, plateaus, then decreases rapidly back to 0. Okay, so you have 5 there. So this thing starts at 0, increases rapidly, plateaus, then decreases back. Okay, so what we're dealing with here in this section, like I said, it's not a lot of what we think of mathematical stuff, but we're looking at data and being able to figure out what's going on and what happens. All right, so you'll have to look at graphs and interpret graphs and so forth from there. Okay, so that's section 7.3. If you have any other questions, make sure you let me know, and have a good day.